The Al Khalifa trial case continues at Ablida Criminal Court. The 48th edition of the Algerian International Fair kicks off today at the Palais des Expositions in the eastern outskirts of the capital, Algiers. In Yemen, fighting has intensified after a barrage of airstrikes hit the southern part of the country. Those were today's top stories. Thanks for joining us live on Dzair News. As we mentioned in the headlines, the Al Khalifa trial continues for the second week in a row at Al Blida Criminal Court. And for further details and updates, joining me now live from Al Blida Criminal Court, our special envoy Siham Saru. Siham, what are the latest updates regarding the trial?
Hi Mustafa. Yes, I can listen to you, yes. Today, the judge carries on listening to the witnesses. Mainly 4 witnesses have pledged today testifying and explaining to the judge the financial situation in Khalifa Bank. The first witness is called Sinina Lakhdar. He was an accountant, expert from the bank committee. He declared that an amount of 50 million dinars was poured into Khalifa Bank at that period. He said as well, Lakhdar Abdel Karim was the second witness. He was a Secretary General in the Financial Ministry. He was interrogated about the last report, a 2002 report, submitted to the minister, the former financial minister. He said that the report about the loan in the main treasury, which tumbled from 18.8 billion dinars on April 2002 to 5 million dinars on June the same year, that was the most critical report, which has never been approximatively sent to the minister. The thing that Mr. Mohamed Laksasi said yesterday, that he sent regularly a report to the ministry, but the Secretary General said that they have never received any reports explaining the decline financial situation in Khalifa Bank. Also, Mustafa, the defense lawyer, Mr. Lazhar, was wondering why there were lawsuits against Khalifa Airways, and he replied that Khalifa Airways had an offense of $45,000. The next witness is called Akhruf Kamal. He was a Secretary General in the Bank Committee of Inspection. And the last witness pledging right now is called Mr. Ben Omar Ma'ashu, a very important witness because he was a former judge of the Supreme Court of the Bank Committee, who explained that the major financial situation and decline of Khalifa Bank was due to the unqualifications of the commissioners account, who were not enough qualified, and there was also a lot of delay in their reports. Also, the judge received just right now a witness called Belhoud Mohammed Rashid, who was a member from the Bank Commission, who keeps affirming that they are doing a perfect job in the committee, in the inspection committee.
Thank you so much for this information, and for further details on the matter, please do stay tuned to our channel. And now we move on to another matter. Prime Minister Abdelmalek Saleh declared that the conduct of major economic institutions will not be subject to political decisions in the future, stressing the independence of management and that international changes are required to move forward. More details with Hinsim Naras.
Prime Minister Abdelmalek Saleh finally steps out of his silence concerning the rumors saying the conduct of major economic enterprises are subject to administrative political decisions, affirming that politics won't intervene in the future in economic enterprises related decisions. Salad's statement follows Bouteflika's recent cabinet reshuffle, through which ministers of sovereign sectors such as hydrocarbons and finance were sacked due to their management failure. This stirred a social controversy requiring the premier's personal intervention, like the shale gas drilling project issue. This also coincides with the amendments made on major public economic institutions like Erageri, Gendarmerie, Sonatrach, and Naftal. It's worth mentioning that the premier's statements were issued after the recent ministerial council, where Bouteflika's latest economic decisions were meant to liven up the national economy. Through his letter to Sonatrach's officials, Salal declared it was high time the company levels up, which means a long-lasting imitation and appointing and removing the heads of economic sectors without laying the outcomes will end, and political authorities will step aside for sectors to be relatively independent for a more prosperous economy.
High-profile figures and decision-makers took part in the activities of the annual University Business Seminar spearheaded by the FCE Forum at the Sheraton Hotel in the capital Algiers. The attendees took the opportunities to voice their concerns by addressing the government to increase its funding towards scientific research.
The Heads of Enterprises Forum attaches great importance to the Algerian student by working to establish a communication line and a bridge between the university and the Algerian economic enterprise, with a view to promote scientific research and a sustainable partnership between the two.
There is no doubt this relation is sustainable for the economic and social development of our country, as well as the emergence of our economy. Keep up this universal progress and be able to live up to the future requirements. It's in these fields that our country has to invest. Investing in human resources means that we will further devote more means for students, teachers, universities, the research and innovation, as well as the competitiveness of enterprises.
FCE President, and in the presence of representatives from the Algerian universities, called for in-depth reforms in the Algerian university and the allocations of a budget for scientific research as valid in most foreign countries.
All governments worldwide fund their enterprises and devote considerable budgets to support research, develop competences, and form a qualified workmanship, as well as develop an entrepreneurship in order to attract the best researchers and scientists. The major challenge our country is facing is to be able to succeed with no longer counting on the revenues of natural resources, but on the work and creativity of Algerians, thus to liven up our economy.
Countries. A required cooperation between academic institutions and their economic counterpart, a cohesion of efforts aiming to be at the service of a new Algerian economy, and the objective of all parties, be it economic or academic, is the advancement of the national economy.
To another matter now. The 48th edition of the Algerian International Fair kicks off today at the Palais des Expositions in the eastern outskirts of the capital Algiers. This international event is due to last for 5 days. This year's edition will witness a large turnout of inquisitives, in addition to the participation of a record of 700 enterprises. India is the guest of honor of this year's 48th edition. Still with national news, and on Tuesday morning, the National Economic and Social Council hosted a symposium in accordance with the United Nations on methods to reinforce institutional capacities for the production and international communication of data information. Mohamed Dzair was there and prepared this for us.
On Tuesday morning, the Algerian National Economic and Social Council hosted a symposium in accordance with the United Nations looking to reinforce institutional capacities for the generation and international communication of data information. The conference was a preamble to the United Nations' General Assembly new objectives for sustainable development, which will further be expanded on this September. The need to measure and track such developments through data information have pushed the CNES and the UN to host Tuesday's symposium.
The General Assembly of the United Nations will decide in September on the new objectives of sustainable development that will replace the objectives of the millennium. And these objectives have targets and require that will be measured, and there will be also ways of measure. So for that, we need data.
Madame Christine Amaral also spoke about the important geostrategic location of Algeria, which was one of 50 nations chosen by the United Nations to be included in this dialogue.
We have done consultations as United Nations in many countries in the world across the continent. Algeria has a privileged position as an African country, a member of the Arab League, a Mediterranean country that is really on the crossroads of continents and has at the same time a very strong engagement towards sustainable development.
Tuesday's symposium welcomed all sectors of Algerian society and stressed the importance of diversity and unity in building new goals. A representative on behalf of the Minister of Foreign Affairs Ramtan Amamra and UN Development Program Chief Serge Kapto also attended the CNES conference and addressed the wider Algerian community.
Still with national news, El Mana Association for Sea Fishing and Scuba Diving seeks to attract the largest possible number of young people to join associated work away from social ills by teaching them to diving techniques and taking pictures deep underwater.
One after another, a lot of people join Al Manar Association for Sea Fishing and Scuba Diving, aiming to protect the environment and discover the deep waters of the Mediterranean. Our first goal is to protect the environment and water resources. We have different disciplines to develop, like scuba diving, fishing and underwater photography. And it's a wonderful thing. We want to make young people avoid social ills, tobacco, drugs and alcohol. So we engage them in these sports, and once they try it, they never stop coming. Young people running away from social ills found in the sea a new home and salvation. First of all, this is sport. Second of all, it makes you discover a wonderful world under the sea. It's a beautiful thing to go fishing and scuba diving instead of smoking or drinking alcohol. We dive with Al Manar Association in the deep water of the Mediterranean to discover a wonderful world filled with energy and beautiful creatures.
As almost all African countries are politically independent, Africa Day is becoming more of a day for awareness creation about African matters. It has also become a platform for informing people about the political and developmental challenges of modern-day Africa.
The United Nations celebrated African countries' economic growth and progress in battling Ebola this past year, among other achievements, while also highlighting ongoing challenges facing the continent on Africa Day Monday. UN Secretary Ban Ki-moon applauded West African leaders' Ebola response and called for a united effort in tackling gender inequality, particularly the issue of violence against women and girls. He called for increased efforts to eliminate Ebola and keep new cases at zero, while working to strengthen institutions whose weaknesses allowed the Ebola outbreak to reach such crisis levels. Economic expansion of about 4% in the continent in 2014, one of the longest historical periods of African economic growth, bodes well for the future of the continent and coming generations, according to the UN, with investment in education, health and infrastructure increasing, the prospects for much of Africa are bright. But one challenge still facing the continent is to ensure that these benefits are equally extended to women and girls. According to Ban Ki-moon, urgent for social empowerment and promotion of women's participation in all sectors of society by removing economic and cultural barriers. While calling for greater progress, the UN also highlighted the continent's success as a leader in female representation in government and positive levels of female entrepreneurship.
In Yemen, Houthi rebels have lost ground in the city of Dzair. Fighting has also intensified in Yemen after a barrage of airstrikes hit the southern part of the country. Since the conflict began in late March, more than 1,000 civilians have been killed. Dzair and the details.
Fierce clashes have raged in the city of Dzair in southern Yemen as dozens of people have been left dead or wounded. Militiamen allied to the exiled government of Abdurrabbu Mansour Hadi have retaken positions previously held by Houthi rebels. Earlier this week, Yemeni officials said UN-sponsored peace talks, due to start in Geneva later this week, had been postponed indefinitely. No reason was given, but the government had demanded the rebels recognize its authority and withdraw from cities they held before being allowed to participate. A local official told AFP that at least 30 rebels and allied fighters, as well as 5 of their opponents, had been killed over the past 2 days. On Sunday, a ship carrying 460 tons of Emirati humanitarian aid docked in Yemen's port city of Aden. The shipment included medical and food supplies, second from the UAE in the last 14 days. Saudi-led coalition airstrikes struck various locations in Sana'a on Friday, hitting camps and weapons depots in the rebel-held capital. Since the beginning of the conflict, 1,037 civilians, including 130 women and 234 children, have been killed, and an additional 2,500 maimed. Unfortunately, no end to the war seems in sight.
In our sports bulletin now, the NBA Conference Finals are underway thanks to the phenomenal play of LeBron James and Steph Curry. The Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors are well on their way to the NBA Finals. Dzair gathered the full story for us.
The NBA Conference Finals, taking place at the end of May, have been telling as the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors look set to contest the NBA Finals in early June. In the Eastern Conference Finals, LeBron James has showcased his ability to show up in big matches, leading his team to a 3-0 lead despite the absences of key teammates Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. King James has averaged 27.9 points per game, 10.5 rebounds per game, and 8.4 assists per game during the playoffs. James and the Cavaliers survived a late Atlanta scare on Sunday night, and now have a chance to sweep the series if they win at home tonight. The Western Conference Finals might as well have been dubbed the Stephen Curry Show. This year's NBA MVP has averaged almost 30 points per game and has set an NBA playoff record for 3-point field goals made, hitting them at 42%. The Warriors rode Curry's hot hand to a 3-0 lead until Monday night, when James Harden matched Curry's hot streak. Harden scored 45 points, going 7 out of 11 from behind the arc to keep the Rockets alive. Despite Monday night's loss, the Warriors are still heavy favorites to progress to the NBA Finals, where they will probably play the Cleveland Cavaliers.
And finally, a volcano in the Galapagos Islands has erupted for the first time in more than 30 years, spilling streams of bright orange lava and raising fears for the world's only colony of pink iguanas. Wissam Esnoussi has the full story.
The world volcano on one of Ecuador's Galapagos Islands erupts early on Monday morning, lighting up the sky. It's on the sparsely populated Isabela Island and does not pose a risk for humans. The volcano that has lain dormant for the past 30 years has reawakened in a savage spectacle of orange lava and grey smoke. The eruption generated a very large column of smoke that rose more than 10 kilometers into the air and later drifted toward the southwest part of the volcano. Scientists say the activity could continue for several days, but so far neither residents nor the critically endangered Galapagos rosy iguana are reported to be at risk.
Scientists per square metre in the Galapagos is pretty high, and I suppose as high as anywhere as you can think of. And yet suddenly we heard of an Italian team who were up in the north, on Wolf, the farthest north of the volcanoes.
The Galapagos National Park initially tweeted a warning about Isabela Island, where world volcano erupted at dawn, but later said the iguana's habitat on the volcano's northwest side appeared to be out of danger.
And with these amazing footage of Mother Nature, we come to the end of our news in English, brought to you from Dzair News Channel. Thank you for stopping by.